I've learned so much as a software guy, kind of dipping my toes into manufacturing. And even if I never actually work in manufacturing, the lessons from this and just the fun will stay with me.
Today I'm excited for a pretty special episode. Last week we had Jeff Koss on, one of my great lean thinking friends, and he shared how Koss Tailored had pivoted to producing face masks and face shields and to support this COVID-19 pandemic. And so today I have a very it's similar but also very different guest. His name is Radek, and he comes from Poland. And so Radek is a software engineer. He creates software for a living, and he and his colleagues, when the peak of the crisis hit there in Poland, and they also were short of PPE, like many folks were in the world. Their healthcare workers were short of PPE, and so they figured out a way to produce face shields. And using some resources that they had in their local community, they called it a hackerspace. I think in the States we might call it a makerspace. So I don't want to ruin it, but one little stat: these software engineers came up with the idea, and a week later were producing face masks, and they went on to produce over 55,000 face shields in the course of around 1 month. So it's pretty amazing what they did, and so very inspiring. And Radek is just, as you'll hear, is really humble and really kind, and obviously extremely smart. And so I just think you're going to really take a lot from this episode. I know I sure enjoyed chatting with him. So we're going to link to many things, including some pictures and videos and websites where they kind of show you physically what they did. That's going to be over at gembapodcast.com. This is going to be episode 324. So be sure to go check out the show notes for today, and be sure to connect with Radek and say thank you for everything that he did. He says he spends most of his time on Twitter, so we're going to put his Twitter link in the show notes as well. Again, gembapodcast.com. Look for episode 324. Okay, enough from me. Let's get to the show. Radek, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We were talking before we hit record. I said, boy, your audio sounds really good. And see, you explained, I guess you have a podcast. Tell us about your podcast. I know it's not related to lean, but who cares? Tell us about your podcast.
It's a podcast with the dumbest name I could have think of, and it's called The Podcast.
The Podcast. Okay.
It's literally thepodcast.fm.
Nice. So what's it about? What do you talk about?
Being my co-host, who's also kind of my boss, kind of my friend. It's complicated.
Yeah.
We talk about anything, really. So often it's technology, sometimes it's marketing, or sometimes it's just our hobbies. It's a weird thing. Recently we talked about my adventures in manufacturing.
Nice.
I guess.
Well,
so
yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really cool, man. Really cool. So what part of the world are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Poland.
From Poland. Okay. Well, so we yesterday I talked to Jeff Koss. He has a company in the state of Washington here in America, and they make furniture for airplanes and stores, and it's actually kind of like Nordic looking style furniture, really nice. And anyhow, they pivoted to produce face masks and also face shields, which I know we're going to talk about with you. So it's really interesting back to back. One company in the state of Washington, and then now some software engineers in Poland doing very similar things. So let's talk a little bit about how things are going in your part of the world with COVID-19 in Poland.
Not too bad. It seems like things are fairly stable now. Mm-hmm. The daily numbers have been pretty stable for a month and a half. So not great, but also not terrible.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Well, and hopefully this episode won't come out until June. We're recording this on May 5th, but we've got several podcasts in queue already.
Yeah.
But hopefully by the time people are listening to this, things are even better than they are today. So let's hope for the best. Well, Radek, I really appreciate you reaching out. I think we connected, I guess, over LinkedIn first, I believe, and came to find out is a really interesting story that you guys have learned how to get into the manufacturing world, but doesn't sound like manufacturing is your background. So maybe let's start there. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your background, and then we'll get into your manufacturing experience.
Okay. So I'm a software engineer. That's what I've been doing for the past decade and more. I work at a small Polish company making software that helps businesses get more organized.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Nozbe.
Okay.
Couldn't be like anything to do with manufacturing, though my reading habits are pretty broad, and just so happened that last couple of months I've been rereading about lean manufacturing and Toyota Production System, listening to your podcast. I discovered it just by browsing for manufacturing-related podcasts.
Great.
And then a couple months later, this crisis, this pandemic hit. And I'm a member of this association, this club. It's called the Warsaw Hackerspace.
Okay.
And it's a group of tinkerers. It's mostly programmers, actually, software engineers, and it's a place where people come to just hang out, work on their projects, usually software projects. But you also have a workshop. We have a CNC mill. We have a laser cutter. We have a bunch of machines. Many of them, really done on the cheap. Like the CNC mill we have is actually a 1981. Bridgeport Series 1 MDI that has been converted, by just a bunch of geeks with, new motors, new controllers, everything, because that's what we can afford.
Yeah.
And, this opportunity hit, and we were thinking, maybe we could do something about it. And we saw on the internet, people were talking about, 3D printing face shields. And it just didn't seem like the best method to do this, right? Like if it takes 2 hours to print one holder, then how many can you make? Not that many, unless you have a whole farm of 3D printers. But our landlord is a printing company, actually printing cooperative, and they've been quarantining themselves, and they have a die cutter.
Okay.
And normally they use it to build, make cardboard boxes. And we thought, well, why couldn't we repurpose it to just cut whole face shields? And that's what we did. Like we designed. We made this design that only involved 2 pieces of PET foil that have been die cut. And this way, we could build hundreds of these face shields per day. And it took us 5 days from start, from nothing, from an idea, through like 40 prototypes, laser cuts, to die cutting like 200 face shields per hour.
So if folks aren't familiar with die cutting or whatever, like talk us through, like, what does it look like? I know all we have are our words.
Yes.
We can't show pictures or anything right now. So
all right.
Talk to us about like the process itself. Like, what does it look like?
So there's a couple of types of die cutters, but the one that we have access to is, it's like, there are 2 parts. There's a wall on which you mount a die, and a die just has a bunch of knives cutting a shape and maybe some additional features to push out the cut feature. And there's a table, and on the table you can make a little fixture for setting up. Usually it would be cardboard, and then it will make this motion that will close the table and push it with a couple of tons of force onto the die, and then it will return, right? And there will be some features to push it out on the table. And with some tweaking, you can also use it to cut and shape a little bit of plastic foil, like thick plastic foil. We use PET foil. So we did that. And it just like opens and closes, and with some technique you can use it. You can do it almost continuously. Like if it's cardboard and you have a skilled operator, then you just change out the blanks and the cuts, product every 3 seconds or so.
Where did you get the raw materials, like the plastic?
That was actually kind of interesting, because not having anything to do with manufacturing, how are you gonna get like a literal ton of PET foil? Because we knew we were going to make thousands or tens of thousands of these. So we were going to need a lot of plastic, and we had no experience calling up factories to buy it. And PET foil during this pandemic became a scarce commodity, and it's very difficult to get it because people are building, sneeze guards and all sorts of things with it. So if you just go to a random distributor, they don't have it. It's sold out. So you have to go straight to factories which don't like promote themselves on social media to be reachable to just a bunch of geeks. Like you have to really find them. Like they're just part of the industry, and we weren't or aren't.
So you reached out to them anyhow, I guess.
Yes, and secured a couple of shipments. Had to get it from multiple ones. And
how did you? Not to probe, but this takes money, right? What kind of? How did you navigate through that?
So we bought the first roll, just a single roll, like 100 kilograms of plastic with just our own money.
Okay.
And then when we validated the design, we validated that it's going to work. We laser cut tens of prototypes. We sent them out to medical professionals around Warsaw. They told us, this is great. We want this. This is going to work. And then we started going to social media, promoting, asking for help, asking for material, asking people to promote this and spread this, to get the material.
Did you ask for fundraising, anything like that, or?
Kind of, yeah. And people came, and people donated, and thankfully, the material is not very expensive. It's just PET foil. So it costs us something like 40 cents to make one face shield. And when we started, the demand was so high that the market price for a face shield was like $25.
Oh my gosh. That's a pretty good margin.
Yeah, of course, we didn't sell it. Like, we gave everything away for free. We just, did everything pro bono.
Wow.
But yeah, to date, we have produced 55,000 face shields.
Oh my gosh. And this is like a month, right?
Yes.
55,000 face shields. Did I
mention we're software engineers? And
you're software engineers, right? Right? Oh my goodness. This is incredible. Now, are you sending them, or are they primarily just going to there in Poland or across the world or Europe, or who's your customers?
So initially we started just asking around among friends and whatnot. And people said, okay, if you can get me couple dozen, that would be great, right? And we started just driving around, mostly hospitals, big hospitals in Warsaw. It's a pretty big city, so there was plenty of demand there, and sending out to a couple of hospitals around Poland where we have friends. But eventually we set up a forum. It's covid.hackerspace.pl, where people just could say, okay, we need this many, and this is our data. And since we're the hackerspace, it took one guy like 2 days to set up like a very simple CRM to manage.
Well, the software
this.
should be easy for you guys. Come on.
Yeah. But it really was necessary because it's, hundreds, it's like 1,000 orders at this point. So it's plenty.
Wow.
Would be unmanageable in just like an Excel spreadsheet with the amount of time as volunteers we have. And then we asked for help for like, okay, hey, does anyone know like courier companies, like, shipping companies? Can you like provide us with cheaper or free packages? Because we sent out like 40 packages a day, and they came, and that was great. So there was another kind of piece of the puzzle that allowed us to make that 55,000 face shields for something like $15,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what was the timeline from when you first had the idea that, and I mean, not just that'd be kind of interesting. Like you really decided, let's try this. What's the timeline from when you decided to try this to where you delivered your first official batch, not the prototype, but like you're in production now? What was that timeline?
Okay. So I think it started one Sunday where the idea came. On Monday, we checked out, we asked, permission of our landlords, hey, can we use your machines? They said yes. We checked it out, fixed up a couple of things. Tuesday, we started designing and prototyping. Thursday, I believe we had the kind of final prototype delivered to medical professionals. And ordered a die from a die maker who makes it by hand, essentially. And we happened to have die maker at the same building. So that's easy.
Nice.
So that was my first experience, not just playing around with CAD, because I've been building stuff as a hobby, but like working with someone who knows their stuff and knows like this production technology. And he told me, okay, you need to change this, and this, because that's not gonna work on a die. So there was some more tweaking, and on Friday we got the die from him, and Friday night we started die cutting. And after weekend, on Monday we started shipping out first parts.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's incredible.
Like 7-8 days.
That's incredible.
And then the continuous improvement started.
So talk about that.
Yeah. So at the beginning, I messed up the die design. Because of my inexperience. I forgot about certain things that are different when you laser cut versus when you die cut, and didn't correct the design for that. So, I learned my lesson in manufacturing. Like, if you make a proper tool, this one wasn't that expensive. It was like $250, the die, and you mess it up, then, you gotta get a new one.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, the face shield was 2 parts, and the smaller part came out broken. It didn't work. So for about a week, we still laser cut those. So it was die cut the big part and laser cut the small part. Laser cutting is way slower, of course. So we were limited to something like 100 pieces per hour.
So yeah, bottleneck was definitely your laser cutting process then.
Yeah. Then it took like half a week to get the fixed up die. And then we immediately sped up to 200 parts per hour. But then there was a number of problems with this process. So the face shield had a number of little holes, and the knives on the die that would cut those holes, they would get clogged up. And there were so many features. Like we didn't have experience with this technology, so we didn't think that with this many features, this many circles and little helper features on the face shield, the plastic is going to get stuck to the die. So you have to stop the machine and pull it out, right? It doesn't just come back to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So we would fight with this, improve it a little bit. And then what happened is that we got an email from an injection molding company here near Warsaw, who said they would like to make face shields pro bono, and they designed and they made the die for the face shield frame, the part you'd put on your forehead, and a custom kind of rubber strap, but they need the window part. So we thought about it because we had a design that didn't need injection molding or 3D printing, but they said they want to do this pro bono. So we didn't know if we are to trust them at first. But we thought, okay, worst case scenario, we're going to lose $200 on a new die, but let's design just the window for their part and team up. So we did that, and they started injection molding the frames and the straps, shipping them to us. We'd die cut the windows, which would be just the outline and 4 holes for locating and mounting. Much simpler design from our standpoint, right? And then since we had the contacts, the CRM, and the shipping, we'd ship that. So immediately by doing that, we sped up the die cutting from 200 parts, initially 100, then 200 parts per hour to 400 parts per hour.
Because you basically eliminated that laser cutting process, right?
Yes, and then eliminated a bunch of features that were necessary since you didn't need to die cut parts, just mount it on like solid plastic. So the die would be much more reliable. It wouldn't get stuck, and the shield would just go back to the table. So instead of taking 18 seconds, like that would be our takt time for die cutting.
Your cycle time. Your cycle time.
Yes. Yes. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Anyway.
So let's break. If we were to kind of draw like a little process map of this, within Lean. I don't know how much you've studied it, but we often talk about, cycle time, takt time graphs. Or takt time is the rate of demand, like what the customer wants. So like Toyota has a takt time of in normal times, obviously, 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds, a car is coming off of an assembly line. So their takt time, 60 seconds. So then they try to balance all of their individual processes to be no more than 60 seconds, right? Otherwise, if you had a process over 60 seconds, then that cycle time is greater than takt time, and we're going to have a problem unless we put more resources on it. So if you thought about that, what are the cycle times for the individual processes?
As for injection molding, this would happen at a different facility.
For sure.
Parts, right? But I believe that they were able to mold 2 frames every 15 seconds. And 6 straps every 20 seconds or something like that. And then initially, we'd take 18 seconds for one window, the transparent part. We'd go down to 10 seconds, and then we doubled the die. We got a new die with 2 windows. And so we effectively halved it. So cycle time was, one cycle of the machine would create 2 parts.
Say 5 seconds now, every 5 seconds or something like that, as far as that process goes. Now, what about so there's assembly and packaging and whatnot. How did you work through that manufacturing process?
I wish I measured exactly the cycle time for those processes. So speaking of Lean, the part that was the greatest inspiration to us was just the process Kaizen and making each process faster and faster. Not always formally measuring it, but just simple things like
fix what bugs you.
We'd make yeah, exactly. We would have so what we did was to simplify shipping. We'd make packets of 25. So if someone asks for 10, we just get them 25. If they ask us for 120, we'll give them 125. This would simplify packing, and the injection molding company would send us packs of 25, and we'd make packs of 25 of the windows.
So in lean terms, your pitch might have been 25. We're gonna move 25 a time down our process.
And very simple things, just silly things we've optimized, but sometimes it took us a week to figure that out. Like we'd count out 25 parts and then use a little bit of paper tape to make it into a packet of 25. And then someone realized, okay, why don't we just weigh it? Like each part has consistent weight, so that's way faster.
Yeah.
So each little process got a little bit faster. I wish we got to the level of lean where we would have gotten to proper flow. We didn't do that for a couple of reasons. One is that we did this as volunteers, so it was very hard to coordinate people to always have a proper team and do things at the same time. So we did end up batching, unfortunately, and a couple of times we did get cut by it, like making 200 defective windows because the die cutter operator didn't notice that one of the holes got clogged.
Yeah.
And then we'd spend so much time drilling through those holes to fix up.
So it sounds like you are a believer in one piece flow. So
Yes.
So last week's episode that folks have listened to, hopefully, was with Jeff Koss, and again, he's at this company in Washington, and these guys are prolific lean thinkers. All right, I mean, they're arguably one of the best lean thinking companies in the world. Okay, and he's told a story about how they were making face masks and face shields and whatnot, and his company is very familiar with one piece flow. Right, they're very familiar with all the waste that is and manufacturing processes, and he explained a story that they too fell into batch mode, initially when they're first getting going. So don't beat yourself up, that you were batching, because one of the best lean thinking companies in the world also fell into that trap. It's so easy to, right? It's natural to batch for whatever reason, right? So don't beat yourself up. But it's interesting that you recognize it at least. So are you still?
Yes.
So it's May 5th here when we're recording this. Are you still producing face shields, or have you stopped?
We've slowed way down. The pace of new orders slowed down from something on the order of 10,000-15,000 per week to maybe 1,000 or 2,000 per week.
Okay.
So we are able to mostly get back to normal, get back to our day jobs, and maybe one evening a week we'd make a batch.
Yeah.
That would last for another week. And then there will be someone that every other day will come in to ship those out. But it's still possible that there will be more demand. If only because those face shields, they get foggy over time from disinfecting. Like they're not too resistant to alcohol and they get scratched up. So after a couple of weeks, you might want a new one. But even if no one wants any more, then I'm very proud of what we've done, because the problem was not so much about money. It was about the lack of supply. Like the demand was so high that, quote unquote, real industry just needed a couple of weeks to set up, proper professional production lines. I know in Poland there have been shipments of some PPE from China. Well, that also takes weeks to figure out. So those were crucial weeks with lots of demand and no supply, and so we've supplied.
Yeah, what did you learn from? And I don't mean, I got better at die cutting. I mean, like, what did you learn about? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your friends, your colleagues, your community? The world? Like, what did you learn through this experience?
I definitely got a lot of appreciation for manufacturing. Like there's a lot of challenges in it that are just very different from the kinds of challenges I face at my day job as a software engineer. Just completely different kinds of problems. And it's just, like if you're a software engineer and you're building a product, if you have 20 users or 50,000 users, it almost doesn't matter. Like you can run that many on one computer, right? It's not a problem. It's just abstract numbers. But a significant portion of those 55,000 face shields that we've manufactured went through my hands, and I got cuts on my hands to prove it. And I have an intuitive understanding how much work, how much material, how difficult it is to just things we wouldn't think about, like how to manage waste, because there's leftovers, and we would just pile them up because like that's what we would do in the workshop and then throw away. But if you make 55,000, like that still comes out to tons of waste, and we didn't have space for it. And it's difficult to deal with it, right? So the meaning of scale is very different in physical manufacturing world versus with when kind of producing virtual things,
bits and bytes over the internet, right?
It's really satisfying to build physical things. Like I know this because I've been playing around just building simple things, laser cutting, 3D printing, milling for my own. But at scale, like you also get appreciation of both the fun and the sometimes the hard parts of like physical things. But it's satisfying that it's tangible.
For sure.
That's nice.
For sure.
And I've been reading up on lean manufacturing over the last couple of months, kind of just for fun. Like it just stuff like that sometimes piques my interest. And I've been trying to find parallels for software engineering that would be applicable to my own work, and I found some. But after this project, I would the meaning, the value of one piece flow, like the meaning that I got real understanding what it means that it's a sin to overproduce, right?
Yes.
Like I heard the explanation of it. But I never before like drowned in face shields.
Yes. Yes.
And just through living just a little bit, just for a couple of weeks, just as a volunteering project through some of these things, like I noticed a lot of parallels to completely different industry with very different constraints than manufacturing that are actually applicable, like lessons from lean that slightly changed are actually applicable to my own work. And that's very satisfying.
I know you said you've listened to some of the podcasts. Have you, back in the archives, we've had Richard Sheridan from a company called Menlo Innovations. They're based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, here in America. Have you heard of this company?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, so I'll send you a link to the podcast, and we've done multiple things with Richard and his company, but they're software developers, software producers as well, and very into lean and agile, whatever you want to call it, so I think you might really enjoy. Well, he's first of all, an amazing human being. He's one of my favorite people in the whole world. But he's, I think you would really appreciate hearing this. I'm going to send him this podcast for sure. But I think you'll appreciate him and for the things that they're also learning and how lean and just continuous improvement applies. They do things like they work two to a computer. It sounds crazy, but they have two software developers sitting at the same computer with one keyboard, and one codes and one watches. And then after a few minutes, they switch off, and the other one codes and the other one watches. And you think, oh boy, this is so slow. Why would they do that? They could have double the productivity. But Richard goes on to explain that they never produce defects, ever. like this doesn't happen, right? Their products are literally perfect when they're released, and so there's lots of parallels between the software world and continuous improvement, right, at large. So it's so interesting to hear. But I'm not sure Richard. I'll put Richard to the challenge. I don't know if he's ever went out and produced face shields or produced a physical product. So it's interesting hearing how people. Because I think a manufacturer would do well to go and understand software, right? And see what you do well. So I just feel like it's important for people to broaden their horizons, right? Get out of your little silo, your little part of the world, and go venture into something totally different and see what you learn from it, right? Because you're going to learn something, I guarantee it.
That was actually the piece of my insight that I wanted to share. It's exactly this. Like, I feel like I've learned so much as a software guy, kind of dipping my toes into manufacturing. And even if like I never actually work in manufacturing, like the lessons from this and just the fun will stay with me. And I think manufacturing people would be really well off dipping their toes into software a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I watch these YouTube videos, seeing how people do machining and, setting up production lines. And I see so many instances where, my light bulb as a software engineer just lights up that, oh, this is actually like, it would be so simple to make this easier with just a little bit of code. Like, I'm not talking like complicated systems. Just if you could have basic coding skills, just some scripting, just know how to connect a few pieces together. It's really not that hard to learn, like basic coding skills. And it could save you a lot of time, a lot of money.
Yeah. Well,
and even if not, it's fun.
Yeah, well, for sure, and it's wiring different parts of your brain, right? Exactly. New neural pathways are being created, right? When you learn different things, and you never know when those pathways are going to interconnect one day.
Yeah.
So good. This has been such a fun episode, and so honored and proud. I mean, I don't even know you, but I'm proud of you, and so thank you for doing what you did, and thank all of your colleagues there. Here in America, these, you call it hackerspace. I think the term that we use here in America sometimes is maker spaces. And it's a similar thing, they have all this equipment and then you can come in and you can rent time, or you can belong to the club, so to speak, and they'll teach you how to run machines and things like that. So sounds similar to what you're talking about. I would love to see that grow, not just in the world, where everyone had access to this type of equipment and a saws or whatever it might be, and maybe there's classes and, we're teaching people how to do things they don't know how to do. I think this would be a wonderful opportunity.
I agree.
Yeah.
Completely.
Radek, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
I mostly hang out on Twitter, RadexP, RADEXP. I also have my own podcast at thepodcast.fm. And there's more info about this project on hackerspace.pl. That's the official Hackerspace website.
Okay.
And on our social media, we shared some videos of the die cutting process, for example, which is quite fun, like seeing kind of the speed with which even an amateur operator just moves those blanks to cut face shield windows.
Well, let's do this. I want you to send me all the links that you have to your websites, to your podcast, to your Twitter, to everything, and we're going to put this in the show notes. So folks, just go to gembapodcast.com. This is episode 324. And we'll link to everything because you're never going to spell Radek's name correctly in LinkedIn or Twitter.
Sure.
But we'll link to it. So all you got to just go to gembapodcast.com 324. So, well, again, thank you so much, Radek, for everything that you've done and super, super inspiring. If anything that I think maybe a key takeaway for me is people just need to not have fear of taking action and trying to see what you learn, because so many people sit around and say, oh, there's not enough this, not enough that. well, go do something about it. Go try. Go bring some people together and see what you and your community can do. You don't have to do it alone. You didn't do it alone, right? And but I think that's maybe a lesson that we should all just take away from this is that, hey, if Radek and his software engineers can produce 55,000 face shields in a month, then there's not much the rest of us can't do as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Take care and be well over there in Poland, okay?
All right.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Whether you've been on the continuous improvement journey for many years, or perhaps you're just getting started, Gemba Academy is here to support you. And while we're best known for our more than 1,500 Lean and Six Sigma teaching and virtual tour videos, we also have a team of experienced Lean and Six Sigma practitioners available for one-on-one coaching, as well as a variety of Lean and Six Sigma certification options. To learn more and to schedule a demo, head on over to gembaacademy.com.